peace and greetings, beautiful beings. Thank you for attending another episode of Sacred Sound Expressions. Okay. Bear with me this week. I'm healing from a chest cold, but we're all good, But my voice kind of goes in and out. I cough. It sounds disgusting. I'll try to edit it out if I can, okay? So, in today's episode, we are going to discuss navigating a Saturn return or a dark night of the soul. I say or because my first dark night of the soul happened during my Saturn return, and it all kind of went together. I feel like a dark night of the soul is just bound to happen during a Saturn return because of what a Saturn return is. So if you don't know, a Saturn return is when Saturn returns to the sign that it was in when you were born, and that cycle takes about 29 years. I will be 29 next month. So when I was born, December 8th, 1993, Saturn was in Aquarius. And now Saturn is in Aquarius. It got back to Aquarius May of 2020, and it will be moving into the sign of Pisces March of 2023. So I have about 4 months left of my Saturn return, and I'm feeling this really grand responsibility, this really big feeling to take responsibility of myself and to really just figure out what is it that I'm doing. Okay, what are you doing with your life? Like, how do you want to spend your time? And that's why from what I've seen, the dark night of the soul always happens during your Saturn return, because that's what a dark night of the soul is for. Is for a true inner self-discovery. So if you've never heard of the term dark night, I need to slow down. I'm out of breath. Okay. A dark night of the soul is when you go through an ego death. It's where everything that you thought was true, it all falls apart, everything around you collapses, and you're stuck just holding ashes in your hands, and you have to completely rebuild yourself. That is the dark night of the soul that I had. So let's get into the juicy bits and details. What happened to me? How did I handle it? And what did I learn from a dark night of the soul? So, from what I've seen, there are about 5 stages to the dark night of the soul. There are 5 clearly different phases of the dark night. So, the first phase is the crisis. Like lightning strikes your life. Like you experience this event, this circumstance that rocks your entire foundation, the core of who you are. For me, it was publicly being attacked by a woman who I referred to as my sister on social media. She publicly ripped me a new asshole, and the mutual friend who was also my business partner took her side and really took her side and not mine. And that was the first domino. You can think, okay, 2 friends arguing on social media, that's not this big crisis, but it literally was the first domino that fell, that knocked over a whole bunch of other dominoes that led to me having literally nothing by the end of the year. So that happened in July of 2020, this big public argument on Facebook. And from July till October, I experienced the end of that sisterhood, but not just that sisterhood. I ended up getting kicked out of that entire friendship group. Like, that entire group of friends was just like, well, she don't fuck with you no more, so we don't fuck with you no more. In hindsight, I realized none of those people were ever my friends. Like, I would never refer to those people as friends. I am for the purpose of this video, but those people were never my friends. Because if they were my friends, they would have called me and said, hey, what the fuck is going on? Not a single person called or reached out to me to ask me what was going on, or if I was okay, or if I needed support, or if they needed to be a mediator. Like, yeah. So I got kicked out of that whole friend group. The business partnership that me and the other woman had was completely, I walked away from it. I'm not going to get into the details, but the point is, the business partner, we ended our relationship as friends, and we ended our relationship as business partners. I went through not one, two breakups. Yeah. Oh, how did I do that? I was real poly back then in 2020. I was super polyamorous. So I was essentially in two different relationships, and I ended up experiencing both of them falling apart and breaking apart within that 4-month time period. So not only did I go through one breakup that was really bad, I went through two breakups that was really bad. And it all ended in December of 2020 with me moving back home into my father's basement, and I literally became my worst nightmare. So as a young kid, teenager, my worst nightmare was to be the 30-year-old living in their parents' basement, unemployed, no girlfriend, no boyfriend. That was literally my worst nightmare, and I ended 2020 with becoming the one thing I feared the most, which was to me, I saw it as like a leech, a mooch, a burden. It was always my number one fear to become that, because I already felt like a burden. I already felt unworthy, unlovable. So to become that physically, I always had a job, I always had this, I always had my own thing. So to not have a job, not have a car, not have a boyfriend, to literally have nothing, and to come home with nothing, after 20 something years, I just felt like nothing. I felt like shit. I felt completely unworthy and unlovable of anything good happening to me. So that was 2020 for me. That was 2020. 2020 was fucking horrible. But that was the phase 1 and phase 2 of the dark night of the soul. So phase 1 was the initial crisis, that initial domino. And phase 2 is dissolution, or the tower moment, or collapse. So everything that happened in the remainder of 2020 was phase 2, which is the collapse, where everything falls apart. It seems like you can't catch your breath before the next bad thing happens. People keep dying. That's the collapse, the big tower moment when everything falls apart. Phase 3 is shadow work, shadow weaving, the great purge, or you can just call it depression. I fell into, once I moved back home in December of 2020, after a period of trying to distract myself from the mess that I had created in my life, I fell into a deep depression. And during the year of 2021, I barely left my bed. And I'm not talking about I barely left my house. I barely left my bed. I spent almost the entire year in bed scrolling TikTok. I didn't even have TikTok prior to 2021. I downloaded TikTok in 2021. And once I had that, I was in the bed for a year. I wasn't bathing. I was barely washing myself. I was barely brushing my teeth. If I was eating, it was complete junk food, processed food. I felt it's hard to have self-love and self-respect for yourself when you don't feel like there's anything worth loving. So yeah, I filled my body with junk and poison and didn't wash my ass and didn't brush my teeth, didn't do my hair. Of course, like when you don't think there's anything worth taking care of, you're not going to take care of it. So yeah, that was phase 3. It's just this deep depression and this hunger to find the truth. Like, I spent a year in bed, yes, but I spent a year focused on self-discovery. I don't know. For me, I had got to the point where I was going to get my shit together or I was going to kill myself. Like, without question. Like, at that time, I wouldn't have even hesitated to just be like, yeah, I'm out, I'm done. Like, it felt like nothing to say that. And that's sad. That's sad. Like, that I could just so easily be like, yeah, I'm going to either figure out, I'm going to find God or I'm going to go meet him. And meant it. I meant that with my whole chest. Like, the thing about working with the mushroom is you kind of lose the fear of death. Like, I'm excited about death because I know there is no death. But when you're depressed and you're in bed for a year, things can turn kind of scary. Things can get kind of scary. So, yeah, I spent a year in bed trying to find God. And eventually I did. Eventually I found God. The more I looked for God, the more I found myself. And the more I found myself, the more I found God. It was like this parallel reality that, like, the further you go down this road keeps going right there with you. It was like, it was there the whole time. The thing that I was searching for the whole time was me, and it was in me because it was me. And eventually I found it, which is stage 4, which is revelation, or the revealing of truth. During phase 4, I became aware that I was aware. This happened, I think, the summer of 2021. So about 6 months after I moved back home, I became aware that I'm aware. And I don't remember what happened. I think I was reading a book, and something that Eckhart Tolle said in regards to what you should be, or what you could be doing while you're meditating, is trying to connect, or Joe Dispenza, one of them white men, said, connect with the space. Like, all this empty space you see, it's not empty. Space isn't empty. It's holding the entire universe. Space is holding existence. Space isn't empty. Even this right here, it's not empty. It's energy. So I was super focused on trying to connect with space, the space in my room, and trying my hardest to quiet my mind. The first time I attempted to quiet my mind, I could only be quiet for like 2 seconds. But every day, I kept trying. And eventually, I got to the point where I can quiet my mind instantly, and for longer periods of time, like minutes. So I learned how to quiet my mind. I learned how to connect with space. I became aware that I am awareness. I am beingness. I am infinite intelligence. I am God. And oh God, that's when the relief, the feeling of relief came. Because you go through all of these really hard things, and then you finally have this moment of like, relax. Like, oh, I can relax now. I can stop trying and stop pushing, and I can just stop. I can just stop doing, and I can just be. Oh God. Yes. That's what phase 4 was for me, was learning how to just be. Learning how to sit in the presence of God. Learning how to sit in awareness and just be. The only thing I'm doing is breathing, and even that is involuntary. Like learning how to just sit still and be quiet. It is the most beautiful thing you will ever experience in your entire life. Like, I've never had childbirth, but I'm pretty sure connecting with stillness, getting your mind to actually shut the fuck up, is better than meeting your baby for the first time. I'm trying to tell you. I'm speculating, but that is the most euphoric experience I've ever had, is finally having a quiet mind. But in order to do that, I had to go through all these phases. Woo, it was tough. It was tough. But the fun part comes next, which is phase 5. Where are we at on time? Oh, we're good. The fun part comes next, which is integration. This is where you've gone through all these things, you went through this isolation, and now you're going to reintegrate into society as this new person, right? And it was just freaking scary. It's scary to put yourself out there. It's really like nerve-wracking and exciting and anxious and fun and adventurous. It's this conglomerate, it's this combination of all these different emotions. But the point of phase 4 and phase 3 in the Dark Night of the Soul is to get you ready for phase 5. Because you know you're ready to integrate when you know who you are. Because when you started at phase 1, there was this idea of who you thought you were, only to discover that's not who you are. This person I thought I was, this life I thought I was going to have, turned out not to be real. So I had to go through this phase of discovering, okay, who am I? What do I want? Where do I want to go? What do I want to spend my life with? What do I want to spend my life doing? And that's when, once you've been able to answer these questions, then you go into phase 5. And you start to put yourself out there, and you start to make new friends and maybe even new businesses. And it's just, this is the fun part. Like, this is so fun. I'm having such a good time. My life feels so full and so joyful. I'm literally addicted to joy. Yeah, like life is really, really good. But during the first phases of the Dark Night of the Soul, it really fucking sucked, man. It sucked to go through that. But if going through that means I get to end up here in a phase of my life where I'm addicted to joy, oh yeah, we can do that. I'd do it again if I have to. I would do it again. Because being addicted to finding joy is the most amazing state of being that I've ever been in my entire life. And to me, this feeling is love. Like, this is what it means to be in love with yourself. Is to be in a state of being where you're constantly looking for love and looking for joy. Your joy in discovering yourself in other people and in other circumstances. So that was my Dark Night of the Soul. That's what happened. Let's get into, I created like a list of do's and don'ts for the 5 phases, because these are things that I wish I would have done had I known what was happening to me. And the thing is, there are plenty of videos on how to navigate a Dark Night of the Soul, but the thing is, I didn't know that was what was happening to me. I just thought my life was falling apart. So let's get into do's and don'ts. Before I do that, I do want to say some people have a sixth phase to the dark night of the soul, which is really the first. So before the 5 that I've mentioned, there's something that happens that other people have called the discovery of truth, which is where like you realize something, you find out something, and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then your life falls apart. And for me, that was the working with the mushroom. It's like all of this, I started working with the mushroom in April of 2020. The first domino effect happened July of 2020. So it's like I got introduced to the mushroom, which is really an introduction to myself. And then all of this shit fell apart. List of do's and don'ts for a dark night of the soul. For phase 1, which is the initial crisis, don't panic. And I know it's going to be hard not to panic, but the depth, the level at which you panic is going to be a direct reflection of how hard this is going to be for you. If you panic and you scream and shout and tantrum and throw things and yell, you're only making the situation worse. So like, don't panic. Well, the only thing that you can do when the initial crisis happens is to turn your eye to the divine. Look to God and look nowhere else. Look at God and look at nothing else. That's really the only way to get through really the whole this entire 1 through 5. The only way to really get through a dark night of the soul is to keep your eye on God. So for phase 2, which is the collapse, the tower, the dissolution, don't hold on to anything that's trying to go. If a friend, a business, a car, a job, I don't care what it is, if it's trying to exit your life, don't grab it, because it's gonna burn your hand. It's gonna hurt real bad to hold on to something that's trying to leave. Okay, what you can do is grieve. Anything that goes, just go ahead and grieve it. Don't sit in this place of, oh, it might come back. Because even if it does come back, it's probably going to come back different and changed in a way that makes it completely new. So whatever is trying to exit your life, grieve it. Let it go. Grieve. Mourn it. Because there's a really, really good chance it's not going to come back. Phase 3 for the shadow work, the weaving, the depression. Don't rush. Everybody tries to rush through this part. Everybody tries to rush through this part because depression sucks. Depression sucks really bad. But as Jim Carrey said, depression is deep rest. Your character that you're playing is calling for a deep rest. Really, it's calling for death, but you'll see that when you see that. Don't rush through this part, because the beautiful part, what's really happening, yes, it's depression and yes, it sucks, but really what you're doing is falling in love with yourself. During this shadow weaving and this integrating of all these different pieces of you, you're learning how to fall in love. By learning how to fall in love with yourself. Don't rush through this. Yes, depression sucks, but don't rush to hurry up and get out of it. You're in depression for a reason. Use it to your advantage. You can use depression for your highest good if you don't try to rush to get it over with. Okay? What you can do is start regularly creating a space and a time for the presence of God or the presence of awareness. Even if it's only 15 minutes a day, if you start now, like if you start in that phase, 15 minutes of meditating a day or whatever it is that you do that puts you in the presence of God. For me, it can be reading, it can be singing, it can be dancing, whatever it is. If it puts you in the presence of awareness, do that every day for 15 minutes a day. So that by the time you get to phase 4 and phase 5, it is automatic. It's second nature. It's what you want to do is to train your mind to automatically be able to go to the presence of God. Like, you want to train your mind. You want to spend so much time with God that it becomes second nature to be in the presence of God. Your relationship with God is so clear. The road is so clear. Anytime you need to go, you know exactly where to go. You know exactly how to get there. You know exactly how long it's going to take. Boom. So that by the time you reach reintegration and you're reintegrating with society, which is going to come with a lot of triggers, your mind automatically knows where to go to get help and to be soothed. Okay? Do and don't for phase 4, which is the revelation or this receiving of grand truth. Don't compare. Don't compare. Don't compare yourself. Don't do it. Don't compare your journey to anyone else's. It is going to distract you. You cannot compare your journey to anyone else's. It's not meant to look like anyone else's. It's not built to look like anyone else's journey. Do not compare your journey to anyone else's. Okay? What you can do is self-discovery. Spend all of this newfound energy discovering God. Discover and sit in the presence of awareness as much as you can. Spend as much time as you can just being with God and just sitting there and being held and knowing that you are understood and you are unconditionally loved. No matter what you do, you will always be able to have access to the presence of God. You will never, I don't care how many people you kill, if you stomp on puppies, like it doesn't matter. You will always have access to the presence of God to the degree of which you will allow yourself to be there. But the presence of God will never be denied from you, ever. So while you're in this phase, just be there and just know that there might not be another human on this planet who understands what you're going through, but God does. God knows exactly what you're going through and understands exactly who you are. You don't have to explain yourself to God ever. Never, ever. You never have to explain why you made the decision that you did, because God already knows. And God got your back. Like, God's like, yeah, I know you fucked up, but that's okay, because I'm still here and I'm never going to leave you. You were never alone. You were never alone, ever. All right. So for phase 5, reintegration. Don't do shoulds. Okay? Shoulds freedom does not come with shoulds. Let me say that again. Freedom does not come with shoulds. So don't do them. If you feel like you should be doing this, probably don't do it. I'm in a space in my life where I don't do anything I don't want to do. I really don't. But my willingness to do the things that I didn't want to do before has completely changed. I have found this newfound willingness to play the game, to play the life game, to play the money game, to play the love game. Like, I have a willingness to play now because now I see it as play. This isn't work. This is play. And I'm going to go play with my friends and I'm going to go have fun. So reevaluate all the things that you think you should be doing and see if you can reframe those into I can do this. Now, I should do this. I can do this if I want to. And I want the result that comes from doing this, so I'm going to do it. But try to eliminate all of the shoulds out of your life, because that doesn't feel like freedom. You can stay curious though. Stay as curious as a little toddler running around the streets for the first time, going to the store for the first time, going to a toy store for the first time. Stay curious. Stay open. Stay in love and stay in play. This is all just a game if you choose to see it that way. I choose to see it that way because it's more fun. You can call it a simulation. You can call this a prison, a school, whatever you want to call it. I call it a game because games are fun to play. And I'm going to go spend the rest of my life playing and living this champagne life, okay? I'm going to go have a really, really beautiful story because I said so and because I can. And that's the point of a dark night of the soul, is to realize that you can do anything that you want to do. It's to convince you that you are the creator of your own reality. Yeah, it was tough. But if I can get through this, it is literal physical proof that you can too. All right, listen, my throat is hurting real bad. I'm gonna go. But I love you so much. If you would like some words of encouragement, just tell me what's up. Tell me what's going on with you in the comments or DM me on Instagram, and I'll just send you some love and apply some virtual cuddles and just love on you. If you're ever in need of that, just let me know, okay? I love you so much. I will see you next week on Sacred Sound Expressions, where we are most likely going to be talking about how to identify friend or foe, which is consciously picking new friends.